Hello. What a weird week I've had. So I'm going to tell you a bit about that as I draw. And here's what I'm drawing. The topic of the live stream is patterns and plants. And I should have added the word patterns and rhythms, really, because that's what I want to explore a little bit in my drawing. Sometimes things go off in another direction when you start working away. But not only do plants, and this goes for plants of any scale, big or small, and I have very small things here that I'm painting. Some of these mosses that I've been painting during the week, and I did a little video on them. We're in terrariums that are very small, totally enclosed, kind of biospheres, if you like. And they're teeny little things, but they have a kind of a repeat pattern in them. But not only that, they have a rhythm as well, a kind of a flowing um, sense of direction. And it's a kind of a pattern as well, but it's not just a repeating pattern. Um, and it's interesting. And I think, I don't know whether I was just sitting, wondering whether all art has any art piece has a rhythm in it. And then I was thinking of a lot of sort of Japanese, very still looking art or very formal abstract art. Does that have a rhythm in it, compared to something like a Rubens kind of tiger hunt or something, or one of these big sort of 17th century, big important battle scenes with a lot going on. There tends to be a rhythm in those, as well as a pattern. Say you get like a battle scene with armies engaging. Um, you got a kind of a direction that your eye, as the viewer, is supposed to travel in around that painting. And that's part of the rhythm of the painting. But nature has a rhythm of its own as well. And some of the work that I've been looking at during the week, I posted up an example of some of the things that I downloaded from the internet. I actually paid a few quid for these, but I couldn't repost them here or show them to you here because I'm not sure if they're copyrighted. But I did post an example of the kind of uh, illustration-y artwork that's in a botanical kind of sphere. Um, and these were wallpapers, not just sort of we think of computer wallpapers as well as house wallpapers, but they could be either, because some people are selling them online as wallpapers. And I've posted an example short video over on the community tab. But basically, think kind of William Morris wallpapers with a lot of movement in them of wildlife flowers and things. And of course, stems of longer things like this kind of thing are going to have a lot of movement in them, aren't they? They've got a swing. So if I had a whole batch of these, they've got a little rhythm going, compared to maybe a slightly different rhythm for something like this. You see, um, this as a big clump of moss, we don't think of it as having a rhythm because maybe it's not as much sense of movement. So I don't know. For me personally, the idea of rhythm is associated with movement. Um, but it's an interesting interaction of all the different plants and in nature, an interaction of different things in nature. And I have just put these into a little open, kind of an open, temporary terrarium to draw today because the terrarium, or is the plural terraria, that I made during the week, last week, um, they're closed, aren't they? So when we peer through them, we see something like this. This is one of the drawings that I did. It's kind of a drawing and painting. And when we peer through the terrariums, we see all the droplets and the mist created from all the moss and soil and little animals like springtails in there, little bugs and beetles and things, all creating the biosphere atmosphere in that closed terrarium and creating a kind of rainforest effect, which moths love, you know. So we wouldn't be able to see that terribly well. I mean, I tried to show some of it to you to get the feel of it in um, the video that I put up the other day. But it's one of those things that you hold up really close to you and peer into this tiny world. Or it's akin to bringing the outdoors indoors because the weather has been horrible here and I've wanted to go out in nature, but I've had to bring it in. So the terrariums were great for that. And it's a little bit like being in your living room doing the equivalent of lying on your tummy in the back garden and looking at all the insects going by, but managing to do it indoors without having insects crawling all over you because you've got the closed terrarium, you know. So I had looked up how to do that and everything, but my goodness, it's kind of stressful because you get to feed things, make sure that things get along, don't eat each other, but have things to eat. So you become this bug mother or bug father, depending on what sex you are yourself. And your paternal or maternal instincts have to get you through so that you're not too cruel to any little things in there that uh, need you for something. Now, in a closed terrarium, the things you should be putting in shouldn't need you. So you shouldn't need to open it, right? So you're off the hook there. But the amount of research you have to do, and look at, I've been doing loads of research because I had some ants as well that I was studying, and I still have some of them. I have some wood ants, gorgeous little tiny orange fellas. I have a few of those, and I'm being very quiet because they're in the kitchen in a little feeding box, having their brunch at the moment. And this is why it's been a weird week because I've been sneaking around the house trying not to create any vibrations which might disturb the ants because ants don't like, noisy vibes. It wrecks their peaceful vibe, you see. So neither the wood ants nor the few uh, black ants that I have like that kind of thing at all. But they're absolutely fascinating to observe. But while I'm minding them, and I don't know am I going to keep any of them, because the choice is I could have an ant farm. As I do have a queen in one of the colonies, and I do have some ant eggs with with one of the colonies. So I could keep them, um, but I can put them back. If I think they're not happy, I'm going to put them back in the back garden where I found them because their little colonies are there currently. So I let somebody out this morning and I'm going to draw that little fellow for you because I'll describe him as well as drawing him because I'm going to make this a podcast as well for anybody that's walking around because I'm aware some of the live streams, I don't do loads of work and I do loads of chatting in some of them. And this is going to be a chatty one, but I am going to work as well. So this little guy that I let out this morning is, let's see, I want to start a new page because I like that drawing there. That was the drawing I did with cows in the field. That was part of my weird week, ruining that painting of that. Because I went to make a cardboard frame first, trying out making a cardboard frame, and I cut through the flipping painting as well, like a big idiot. So the painting like looks all right from a distance, and the cardboard frame holds it together, but I ruined it. So I've been having quite a clumsy week, which is not ideal if you have ant visitors. because they're trying to escape every few minutes. But the guy I had this morning, I let him out with me, okay? And the reason I let him out, he was in the terrarium, and he only arrived kind of his debut yesterday, right? And I'll do him in 10 so you can see him better. Here's how he arrived out. I saw this shape at the side of the terrarium as I was lounging on the daybed in the living room, which I use as couch last night. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I have my terrariums, my new terrariums, under an LED lamp because they do like to get light for about 8 hours a day. Apparently, that's part of my research. And I saw this little, well, not that small actually, this thing scuttling across the top of the terrarium inside, obviously, because it's a closed one. And I went, oh my God, what's that? It's huge. So I'll try and draw him to actual size. And he has a long head. He's a black color, right? And I'll tell you what he's called afterwards because I went and found out, but we're going to draw him first. So he has big black bug eyes on either side of this long head and was looking directly at me when he stopped scuttling around because I picked up the terrarium and peered at him very closely and he stopped to look at me. And I don't know if it was a kind of a dirty look or what, but I felt it was a bit of a dirty look because he was very active and kind of may have wanted to get out. That was my overall feeling about him, that he just wanted out and that was it, and he was a bit annoyed. But I may have been projecting my own feelings a bit because he had just come out of his pupa stage, okay? And what happens with apparently 75% of insects is that they go through a an egg stage, okay, and then they go through a larval stage, which can look like a little grub kind of thing, and then they go through a pupa stage, which is a bigger thing basically, or a sealed kind of a thing. But with this guy, he looks like a white, totally, well, creamy white, shiny shrimp, like a sea shrimp, crustacean, or whatever you call them. So think prawns. He looked like a big prawn. And he was not small. He gave me quite a startle when I saw him in the compost heap, which is where I got a few of my little wood ants, my little orangey coloured ants that are called Lasius flavus, apparently, or flavus, depending on how you speak your Latin yourself. But this in the bottom of the can't remember, did he even have feelers? Yeah, he had some sort of little feelers curled upside down in the bottom of the compost because I turned a few things over in the compost. I was looking for little springtails to put in my terrarium, and springtails are just little seed shaped fellas that can be white but can also be grey. And these drawings I'm doing here are about the right scale. So, like, only up to for that little guy, white colored prawn guy I found, he was about the length of tip of my index finger to the first joint, which is big. And he started bucking and wriggling. So it was a bit of an ooh moment. But curiosity won out. So I brought him in and put him in the terrarium. And I just put him on the top of the soil. And immediately he started burrowing down, uh, upside down, with his head down into the soil and his little tail of his prawn end kicking back and forth like mad. So he was very anxious to get under the soil. And part of me thought, oh my goodness, he looks upset because he's bucking so much. I hope I didn't damage him. But I could see that his outer shell was very sturdy. So he burrowed in. During the course of the first day I had him, he burrowed in uh, under a rock that I had. I had this piece of, I think, slate sticking up in the rock, and he burrowed down the side of that, right down into the soil, and I couldn't see him. So this was a week ago, about a week ago. I didn't see him for a week, and then, bing, he pops up again on the side of that bit of slate there. He decided to take a rest there so that he could have a good old stare at me through the jar. And he really liked staring at me. And this is why I felt it was kind of a dirty look. I know we're not supposed to do this with insects. You're not supposed to give them human attributes because they probably don't think exactly like you and me. But I felt there was a little hostility there and perhaps a bit of an accusation going on. Um, but from my point of view, what I thought about was not so much his hostile feelings, because I didn't feel that was legitimate. Perhaps I'm wrong, who knows? But I thought he's very big for a very small terrarium. And I don't know what this guy's lifestyle is because when he came out, he was incredibly beautiful with this change from white to totally black. But he, I don't know, didn't know what he eats, uh, whether he's super active, likes to run around on the top of the soil or underneath it. I didn't know anything about him. So I immediately went into this, oh my God, I hope he's okay in there. And then I immediately, after that, went into this, is he going to eat everything in there? Because everything else, including woodlice, which are about the size, the length of full grown one, maybe the length of the fingernail on my little finger. And they're little grey guys with a little um, suit of armor on their back and lots of little legs to carry them around really quickly around a terrarium. They're a lot smaller than this guy, who turned out to be, when I looked him up, a some sort of ground bug. And in depending on what sort of ground bug he is, he may or he may not eat springtails, of which there are quite a few in the terrarium. And they keep the soil healthy. Springtails are the little guys that when you go out to your garden or the forest or something and you turn over some soil, you'll see a little bit of bounciness going on. And you have a few types of things. For me, you've got like a hopper type thing that isn't a springtail. He looks like uh, something out of the movie Alien, but looks crustacean as well. He looks like a little shrimp as well, but he's got that shiny black carapace that the monster had in one part of Alien. So they're really kind of creepy looking. For only that reason, only that association. And they bounce around, but the springtails are a bit bouncy as well, but they like going all up and down and through the soil. So some types of these ground beetle fellas eat them. I don't know if this guy does. So, was my terrarium going to be ruined or not? And he was huge. But my dilemma was he was also gorgeous. And I just was crazy about him from the minute I met him. And I thought, you're so interesting to watch. And your little suit of armor is so beautiful because this he has the long head, right, that looks armored, beautiful set of antennae that have all these moving parts in them, like a suit of armor, so that they can feel things and, move around in all sorts of directions. He's got his beautiful little black, shiny eyeballs on either side of his head. But then you come down his back and he's got a beautiful shield or suit of armor. And I'm drawing him a bit bigger here for viewers. Don't panic. He's not this big. He's this big. Remember, I said only down to the first joint in my finger. You're wondering what this has to do with patterns. We'll get to that, hopefully. So, this guy, his top of his suit of armor is a little cape around his shoulders, and it's curved to fit the rest of the suit of armor beautifully. So it has a few little fancy bits around the edges, and it's made of, it looks like it's made of gunmetal kind of a steel. In very old paintings, you usually see suits of armor that are silver, but you can get suits of armor in a black, in a kind of a dull black as well. And it has that look. And it's wonderful because then the rest of the suit of armor is where other insects would have wings. This guy has a little line down his back, but his wings are fused wings to make a suit of armor instead of a pair of wings. And for listeners, you can hear me drawing. I am drawing is doing an old bit of cross hatching down his back to get the colour. But I also want to put in the beautiful pattern. Finally, we mentioned the word pattern. It's only been 24 minutes before I got to some of the point. But let's face it, a title for something is just a starting point, isn't it? So he's got this little pattern that's actually slightly more subtle even than I'm drawing it, but it catches the light beautifully down the kind of ridges that are like stripes down his back, all of him black now. So any detail that you see on him is very subtle and beautiful in this black. But he has lines across each of the lines going down that looks like a wonderful etched suit of armor with patterns in it. And it's a repeat pattern of not really dots, they're more like lines across, but from a distance it looks like he has a series of deep black dots on his back. And the whole effect is so lovely. And he's also beautiful the way his legs fold, because he likes keeping them folded across the front of his body when he's not running around very actively in the terrarium. Or should I say, when he was running around very actively in the terrarium. Because I tried to take him out yesterday because I felt sorry for him. I thought, you're too big for in there. And much as I like you, I think you'd be happier back in where I found you. And you can decide where you want to go from there. So I tried to take him out last night, and he had only just emerged from the soil, and he freaked out and wasn't happy, and dug back down into the soil. So I went, "Oh my God, I've given the poor guy a difficult time, and he's only just out." So I left him there overnight, and he came out every so often and perched on his bit of slate, staring at me, wondering what I'm all about. I don't know if they can see that far, to be honest with you, but that's how it felt. So this morning he was up on the rock after having a little run around the terrarium. He went up on his rock and was basking in the light. He likes the light as much as he likes the soil, but staring at me. And I said, yes, it's time, my little friend. And I just opened the closed terrarium, put my hand in, scooped him out, and he just lay in my hand, and I took him out and put him back in the compost heap. But it was wonderful finding out what he was, and terrible parting with him. I really miss him. And I even went back out to the compost heap to see could I see him again, to see where he went and everything. Uh, but I don't know if I'm cut out to be uh, a biosphere keeper. Well, I don't mind the biosphere once everything is happy in there, you see. So you get all the right little things that are happy in there, fine. And all these different mosses, I might start trying to draw some of these and see if can I get the rhythm of them going here. Um, all of these little mosses, they're all very happy together, but they need all the other little fellas around to keep them happy, like the springtails, or else they all start rotting. Now, I'm glad to say nothing has rotted yet. I have I think you call, there's a couple of mosses I can't tell the difference between. I think this one, it might be a cushion moss, it's very pretty, or else this one is. That looks more like sphagnum. This is a sphagnum moss, which I was out collecting today because if you dry that out when you're making your terrarium, you can mix that with your soil and a bit of sand or something for aeration. And you could make a closed terrarium for ants, you see. This is what I'm interested in possibly doing. So this is why the ants aren't free yet. And I'm having to be an ant cafe at the moment and keep my voice down and put on kettles terribly quietly and worry about it when I turn the switch on for the kettle. Because I don't really have a super quiet spot in my house, even though it's very, very quiet in here. Is it quiet enough for ants? I'm not sure. Because we humans are very noisy creatures. Now, I'm going to try and get the pattern of this, which is going to be really, really hard. It is beautiful, though. It's so beautiful. It does, when you look at it really close, it does have a rhythm, this cushion moss. Because there's a section of it here all kind of swooping towards the left, and then there's another section of it swooping towards the right. So even though each individual head of it is structured the same way, patterned if you like, uh, it's got a pattern and a rhythm to it. And rhythm, in art is very important, even more so than pattern. You know, pattern would be important if you're designing wallpaper, like the wonderful wallpapers I was looking at that were all wildflowers and things. Um, and botanical artists are so incredibly talented at doing these up close things, and I'm not. But I did enjoy getting lost in this tiny little world of creatures. That's what I really like about it. So, although I might not be able to draw moss as well as some botanical artists that, interestingly enough, I came across again while researching ants, um, I can certainly learn things from it, I think, and really enjoy doing it. It's both very chillaxing, and the feeding the ants bit is um, not very chillaxing because you wonder, are you doing everything right? Is one going to escape and then die in your kitchen somewhere? Will they be okay? So it's easy enough to get the pattern of these guys. I'm drawing them at the moment. But will I be able to get that rhythm as well? This is the challenge, you see, because if I show you with the, just indicated with the pencil for a second. We're trying to get them all going to the left in a curve on this left hand side. But on the right hand side, I want the general swing of each little head of moss to be to the right. And that's what I'm currently working on. So you get that to worry about, and or let's not say worry, let's not use the word worry, that to be interested in, and also the structure at the same time and the shading because um, each bit of moss goes down to piece of soil that has lovely darknesses in it. And the one of the challenges I find is to not get too overly perfectionist about the structure of each thing because I ruin the rhythm of the thing by being too stiff about it. However, this is where botanical artists like the lady I came across again, Lizzie Harper is her name, and I like her work very much. Botanical artists who've been working, very patient people, working patiently for years and years on this kind of very minuscule, very detailed work. This is where they come into their own. Their um, just their talent that they've developed over years, really, that they can do the structure or something perfect, but also get the beauty of the rhythm of the thing looking very free and natural and as beautiful as in nature, really. And that is quite an incredible talent. I'm blown away by their work regularly. And those amazing wallpapers that I saw with all the um, lovely kind of English countryside garden flowers. They were calling them wildflowers, but I looked at some of them and I went, well, some of them are not wildflowers, so that's just the person selling those repeat pattern wallpapers is calling them that. I don't know who the original artist. I would have loved to find out who the original artist was. Um, some things on the wallpaper example I gave you, some things on that person is selling, they're saying are AI things, but these particular pieces are not AI. You can tell they're human, and they're some of them are using watercolors and things to get the color. But just the rhythms in them are so fantastic. An interplay of like one stem with leaf shape twisting over another shape of a different plant, and then a third different plant in the background doing something else. It's that interplay that gives you rhythm and pattern, and that's so interesting. Oh, hiya, Rachel. Haven't seen you in ages. It's lovely seeing somebody dropping in the chat. I don't check chat often enough, do I? You see, that's the thing. I'm too used to rattling around talking to myself. But these days, because I'm house sitting ants, I'm talking to ants a lot. I definitely talked to that ground beetle a lot. He was so beautiful. And to find out what that little white prawn thing was going to turn into for me was it was so exciting to know. First of all, he survived in the terrarium for a whole week. I didn't kill anybody in the terrarium uh, through lack of air or anything like that, i.e., not getting my research right. You see, if I hadn't researched the thing, I think there might have been more carnage in there in terms of things eating other things. but the ground beetle, he was high risk for eating things. But turns out there aren't that many things. I could be wrong now on this, that want to eat woodlice. Woodlice are happy little creatures. They love being in the terrarium. They love it. It's the right size for them, and they really like it, and they do well in the damp conditions. Some of the mosses mightn't like it that damp. I don't know. This guy, I have one like this in the terrarium, and he's got brown bits on him. So I'm waiting to see. I think I went too far out of this. Um, this is the moss I'm trying to do at the moment. This cushion moss. Uh, So another, I would say in a month, it's been a week, so a month you should know really is your terrarium working or not. And the reason that it's extra interesting in relation to the ants is the only way I would be interested in being what they call an ant keeper is if I could offer them an environment that's so nice for them to live in that they're practically in heaven, having a little community. So it would be what I envisage would be uh, a, a closed terrarium. Um, and I think that you can do that for the two varieties of ants I have, which are the wood ant, which is called Lasius flavus, and the black ant, uh, which is Lasius niger, both found in my garden. So some wood, they both like wood. The black ant didn't, where I found it, they weren't very deep in the soil, so you don't need a really deep soil ant farm. The other guys, the wood ants, like quite a deep thing. They're not going to go into the same terrarium, you see. You're not going to have two different types. But this is why I am an ant hotel at the moment, because I'm going to wait and see if I can develop a terrarium that they like, that will survive. The terrarium on its own has to survive first. So if it lives for a month happily, I'll know that terrarium works. That closed terrarium works as an environment, but I'm going to build it for ants so that ants would be happy in it. So I would have to do a separate arrangement for each type. Now, I don't have a queen for one of the types. I don't have a queen for the little wood ants. And unless they have what you call a nuptial flight, or should I say a second nuptial flight, because they've had one already, um, I have no chance of capturing a queen without ruining a nest. And even the little bit of burrowing I did in one of their nests out there, well, two different nests actually, I didn't feel comfortable with it because I felt I was being a little bit too destructive. I wasn't, didn't feel good about myself afterwards. Whereas I wouldn't feel so bad just picking up an ant queen off the ground when she arrives back from nuptial flight, because what happens with ant queens apparently is they go off and found their own colonies. Now I'm liking the rhythm on this one at the moment. I think that's actually starting to work okay. I've got the general swing of it kind of going around this way. I don't know whether you think it's successful or not, but I'm being positive. So, yeah, so it would involve two different terrariums. And there is a way, now that would be like at least a month before I'd have that set up. But to get your colony kind of established, it takes that long to get them kind of settled in anyway in a smaller container before you move them there. So they seem chilled out at the moment. I thought I'd killed one yesterday, and then I fished him out on a little toothpick, And he started moving again, and I put him back in, and I looked it up, and they have power naps. Ants have power naps during the day. Who knew? But I do now. Find out fantastic things about them when you actually have them and you're responsible for them. So obviously, I would have um, mosses in those as well. The black ants were on the ground beside my side door under ivy in not very much soil, but they'd be cool with some a little bit of soil, so a little bit of moss on top, and a lot of wood, and some of these kind of arrangements of rocks and things that they can crawl up inside the terrarium to get up out of the soil when they want to as well. And they will. I can actually the terrarium might for some of them mightn't be that closed because wood ants probably would have more of a chance of surviving in the terrarium. I'm still having to research it. So much to know about them. The ant forums and everything are so interesting. But I might have to for the black ants actually have the terrarium that I can open the top and put in little bits of the type of food that they like and everything because they might not get enough um, nutrition out of the soil because they do things like get aphids, the little tiny little, they come in different varieties, aphids, but they're quite often little creepy crawly, teardrop shaped bugs, tiny little things in cute colors. Sometimes you get them in very cute greens and everything, and sometimes people don't like them because they're on their roses and everything. And they can be little winged fellas as well, flying around, but they like eating those. And not only do they eat them, but apparently some varieties of ants um, have this wonderful relationship with those aphids where I've actually seen videos of it. I've been watching these videos on YouTube all about life cycles of ants. And the aphids they'll be going along and they meet an ant and the ant goes, I'd like a little drink. And the aphid goes, yeah, fine. And he holds his behind up in the air. And he's got a little drop of honeydew that he's secreted out of his behind. So honeydew from flowers, he's been on flowers, and it's lovely sweet stuff that ants love. And the ant drinks the honeydew off the aphid's behind, and then goes, "Oh, that was lovely, thank you very much." And the aphid uh, goes, "Yeah, no problem, mate," and walks off. So they don't even kill the aphids sometimes. Otherwise, you're feeding ants yourself, you might find yourself handling quite a lot of aphids, killing them yourself. But if, like me, you're not maybe not too comfy with that idea, you can give them things like egg or peanut butter for protein needs, and then jam or a sugar water, a little uh, drop of sugar water to drink. And that's what they had today, actually. Cane sugar they had in a little sugar mix. And I tried out two different mixes. I have a homemade blackberry jam, and I gave them little droplets of that as well. And they had to go at both of those, actually. But I did have one die on a half a grape that I put out yesterday, a very well washed grape. But I don't know, did he die of just stressed out? Or I don't know. Can some kinds of sugars be too much? And they're supposed to be okay with grapes. So I couldn't interview him to ask what happened. So I don't know. I had a death. It was very sad. I don't know if I'm hardy enough to be an ant keeper. Okay, so we're doing another little type of moss now in the front. and a stone. And when you're doing something, drawing something up close like this, um, it takes on a huge scale because these mosses look like trees now to me. And this is what's so wonderful about the terrarium and what's so interesting about it to me as a kind of a little hobby is not just that it's free, which appeals to me greatly, I have to say. It's that it allows me to go into this amazing little world, and it stays perfectly still for me to draw it as well. So this would be a wonderful thing in the winter to do as well, because those mosses go on all year. They don't die off in the winter. And your ants go on all year as well, but they have a dormant period in the winter. So I did enjoy reading up all about them when the temperatures go down. It's a bit like plants, really. When the temperatures go down, they're not as active, you see, and they just huddle into their nice warm little um, ant hills. The ones I have, the wood ants make little hills, but not huge big hills like some of the forest ones make very large hills. Now I'm trying to get the rhythm and pattern right in the sphagnum type moss. I think I have the names of them right. This is sphagnum moss here. So you see the way that's got the other one has a kind of a rhythm going, and then this one has a more, the sphagnum moss has a more swingier, looser rhythm than the cushion moss has. So obviously, as an artist, you would want to be aware of these things. And I think that maybe painting on this kind of scale, because it forces you into focusing on, a few things at a time, maybe, although it's very complicated actually when you look at what's going on, um, I think it would help improve kind of drawing skills and things. Definitely the fact that it's staying still for me is huge help. And I don't have any ferns in this one. I do find some types of ferns, type that grows around here most often, the most difficult to do, dreadfully difficult to do. Some sorts of ferns are easy, but I have not mastered the type that I have here, but I have some of it in my terrariums. Haha. And the other thing I enjoyed doing with the terrarium setup was uh, the drawing the water drops patterns on the jars. They're very nice to draw as well. And of course, there are always going to be those patterns because with it being a biosphere, self-contained little ecosystem, um, you're going to get water in the soil at the bottom, and that water is going to, I presume, as it gets, as it you've got animals in it and everything, there all the little bugs and everything are keeping it at a warm temperature, as well as the fact you're sort of cooking it slightly with the closure thing, having it in an enclosure. You're getting the condensation coming down, so it's that rainforest thing, isn't it? So it's recycling its water all the time, and it's making um, oxygen and carbon dioxide as well, I suppose, for its little ecosystem. I'm trying to do this rock here now. So this is where to paint or to draw, I'm drawing with a pen today, and to draw um, shading with a pen, where cross hatching would come in quite handy, because this is how I did my dark soil under the moss, under the cushion moss. with cross hatching, and it's just going doing a series of lines and going in different directions. I did it as well on the beetle's back. So although those lines aren't actually in the rock, I'm making the lines darker by going in different directions with my cross hatching, you see. And cross hatching is such an enjoyable thing to do. Pen drawing with pen is, I think this is why ink appeals to me a lot. And that little Nico G nib I have with the calligraphy pen, absolutely love it. Love that nib. They're not an expensive nib at all. Um, Commonly used by sort of manga artists, but you can get such a beautiful quality of line with those. That and a bit of India ink, and I'm in heaven. But I also love this Japanese office pen as well. I'm never without these. I have boxes and boxes of them and have a repeat order for them, which I'm afraid to cancel, even though I have boxes, because I have this thing. Oh my goodness, what if they stop making them? I won't be able to get them again. Now, that rock doesn't look hugely convincing, but it does have edges, you see, that go down this really dark area in the terrarium. And when I put them in, I think it all starts making sense. And then I go back into the pattern and rhythm of the sphagnum moss beside the rock. So again, it's the interaction of things that seems to make rhythm and pattern meaningful in a composition, and certainly makes it fun to draw. I mean, this whole page, it's a small sketch pad, but that whole page could be a riot of patterns. And I have seen people doing that with um, pen drawings. Pen drawings are very conducive to that. Even if it's just ballpoint pen, you can get some amazing drawings. Um, there is a little obsessive and keeper quality to pen drawings, because the little thinness of the lines you can get while being able to cover quite a lot of ground quite quickly, like a ground beetle. I can't stop thinking about him. He's out in the garden now having a great time, saying, "Woohoo! Free, free at last," running around. That was part of the reason I felt so sorry for him, because he's capable of running so fast, you see. I'll draw another little drawing here again. So I started drawing him there. So I'm drawing him on his back this time with his little legs folded in. And what a treat it was being able to see him come out from his pupil state to go from, I mean, I don't want to be mean, but I called him the serial killer when he was in the terrarium, because I felt there was something really creepy about him um, as a pupa, with all the kicking and everything and burrowing in. I felt he was going to, whatever he was going to turn into, was going to bust out and eat all the other things in a really creepy way that was going to just give me the heebie jeebies and freak me out and make me feel very bad, you see, for keeping them all in captivity and not at least giving them a fair chance to run away. He now looks like he's on the edge of the terrarium because he's in at the side of the moss there, the way I drew him. Draw him staring at me. But yeah, they do. He does look like something. The way he was moving in that terrarium, he did look like something that would really appreciate a lot more space than he got in another terrarium. He would be fine and very happy and everything. But This is where the research comes in. You don't want to just guess, are your little insects happy? You want to make them happy. Well, I mean, if there's somebody who likes insects, if there's somebody who doesn't like insects, you just go, ooh, insect, kill it. But you see, I think once you start looking at these tiny little things up close, it's impossible really to not like them. Well, maybe it is possible, but it would be difficult, I think, because it's something that is interesting. That how can you not like it? I've been just fascinated by all the research and everything I did during the week, but it has been very weird because, like, being quiet in your own kitchen because you don't want to disturb the ants. I mean, that is weird, let's face it. But it's a good weird. And if it doesn't work out, that's fine too, because I know where I got all these little guys from. So they can go back without me having disturbed their lives too much. They just had a kind of really weird stay in some place where food just appeared magically for them. They didn't have to go miles and get it. They don't travel very far. They go foraging, but not very far. And really, the foraging, they just go up to the surface and stuff is there. I mean, some stuff probably wanders past just within the soil right beside them as well. But I will be looking out for the next nuptial flight if it happens, because I only have the makings of one ant colony, and the workers don't survive. Well, they'd survive a few weeks, without the queen, but their lives are a bit meaningless, you see, without the queen, because they're there to look after eggs for the queen and feed the eggs and everything until they get to, you know, larval stage and then emerge as adults. So they don't have that. Now my workers have eggs, but they have eggs to look after, but I don't know whether they're. I'm not sure whether they need the queen around as well. The queen doesn't really, apart from laying the eggs, she doesn't seem to do a lot. She just stands around and it's quite sweet. The workers walk all over. She still has her wings, which isn't an indication apparently that they haven't mated because they'll lose their wings. Got a new plant coming in now that I'm drawing all the time as I'm doing it. This one has a lovely rhythm because it's spilling about in lovely curvy shapes. So that's another nice counterpoint to some of the more staid cushion moss beside it. Um, yeah, the queen ants, they will lose their wings after their nuptial flight when they're ready to lay eggs um, and establish their own colony. But some of them, sometimes they don't at all. So you can't tell just by looking at them. And now I'm going to do a bit more cross hatching for shading on the edge of this patch of moss here. And I'm coming up to the edge of that open terrarium, so I'm not going to make stuff up. I'm just very lightly indicating an edge. Keep an eye on the time. I'm just over the time actually. So I'm going to leave it at that. And I hope you found the um, thoughts about pattern and rhythm, which I feel are interconnected in art. Interesting to consider in relation to if you're doing any art yourself. That I haven't really have a think about. Is it in there in your art? Is it consciously in there? Is it not in there? You might have different ideas about it to me. And hope you enjoyed the ramblings about the weirdness of the tiny world I've been looking at. And if you haven't seen the new video about that, it's over there. So we did get to explore a few little rhythms and patterns. So I might. I've got another type here. I have lots of other types of mosses in the terrariums as well, so I can hold them up close. And I would like very much, I think I'd like to ignore the edges of containers and things and just paint the actual or draw the actual mosses. I might like to fill that page with mosses, would be interesting, and maybe put a few woodlice and springtails and little bugs and things in it as well as I observe them. So thank you very much for joining me and have a great day yourselves. Bye.